The pristine driveway of my parents' Hampton estate stretched before me like a runway, each perfectly manicured hedge a reminder of the wealth they loved to display. I sat in my 10-year-old Toyota Camry, deliberately chosen for this moment, and checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. At 35, I looked nothing like the traditional Wilson success story. No designer clothes, no flashy jewelry, just a simple black dress, and the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what was coming. Miss Sarah Wilson? The security guard at the gate looked confused, probably wondering why anyone would arrive at the annual Wilson family reunion in such a modest car. They're expecting you in the main house. Of course they were. The prodigal daughter, returning to face another year of thinly veiled insults and comparisons to her more successful cousins. If only they knew. I drove past 3 Bentleys, 2 Porsches, and a Ferrari before parking my Camry prominently in front of the entrance. The car stuck out like a sore thumb, exactly as intended. I could already imagine Aunt Marie's perfectly plucked eyebrows rising in disdain. The grand double doors opened before I could knock, revealing my younger sister Jessica in all her glory. Designer dress, perfect makeup, that practiced look of concern she perfected over the years. "Sarah, you made it." Her voice dripped with false sweetness. "We were worried when you didn't RSVP to the private jet arrangement." "I prefer driving," I said simply, stepping past her into the marble foyer. "Gives me time to think." "About what?" "Your little office job." She laughed, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. "Still pushing papers for that startup." I smiled, patting my laptop bag. "Something like that." The main hall was already filled with the Wilson clan in all their pompous glory. Aunt Marie held court near the fireplace, draped in what looked like half of Cartier's current collection. Uncle George, the family's successful investment banker, was loudly discussing his latest yacht purchase. Cousins Michael and David, both riding the coattails of their father's hedge fund, were comparing their new Rolexes. "Sarah," my mother's voice cut through the chatter. "Darling, we saved you a seat, over there." She gestured to a corner table, far from the main family gathering. The exiles' table, where they put anyone who hadn't lived up to the Wilson standard of success. I moved toward it, noting how conversations hushed as I passed. 8 years ago, I'd walked away from the family investment firm to join a tiny tech startup. Career suicide, they'd called it. A waste of the Wilson name. Still working that dead-end job. Aunt Marie's voice carried across the room, deliberately loud. "You know, your cousin Patricia just made junior partner at Goldman. And here you are." "What?" "Some kind of secretary." The room tittered with polite laughter. I set my laptop down carefully and began connecting it to the massive screen that dominated one wall, officially there for family photo slideshows, but about to serve a very different purpose. "Actually, Aunt Marie," I said calmly, "I thought this would be a good time to update everyone on my career choices." "Oh, this should be good," Jessica smirked, taking her seat next to our mother. "Finally ready to admit you need help?" I straightened up, surveying the room. Every eye was on me, expecting the usual, an admission of failure, perhaps a plea for a position at the family firm. They had no idea what was coming. 8 years ago, I began. When I left Wilson Investment Group, many of you had opinions about my decision to join Quantum Tech Solutions. "That ridiculous startup," Uncle George interrupted. "Whatever happened to them anyway?" I clicked my laptop, and the screen behind me came to life. "They went public last year. Perhaps you saw the headlines." The first slide appeared. Quantum Tech's IPO announcement. $4.2 billion valuation. My name listed as Chief Strategy Officer and founding member. The room grew noticeably quieter. But that's not really why I wanted to share this, I continued, clicking to the next slide. You see, I didn't just join Quantum Tech. I was their first outside investor. My personal investment portfolio appeared on the screen. Initial investment, $250,000, my entire savings at the time. Current value, $47 million. That's impossible, Jessica sputtered. You couldn't afford. The next slide shows my complete asset breakdown. I continued as if she hadn't spoken. The tech portfolio, real estate holdings, angel investments, and my recent acquisition of controlling interest in Henderson Global. Uncle George choked on his whiskey. Henderson Global was his firm's biggest competitor. But that's not even the interesting part, I said, my voice still calm and steady. Would anyone like to guess who else invested in Quantum Tech? Early stage, private placement. The room had gone deathly silent. I clicked to the final slide. Because I have here the complete list of everyone who declined my investment offer 8 years ago, including you, Uncle George, who told me I was too naive to understand real business, and you, Aunt Marie, who said little girls should leave investing to the men. Even you, Dad, who called it a foolish waste of time. The numbers told the story. $250,000 invested then would be worth $15 million today. They'd all passed. So yes, I concluded, unplugging my laptop, I am still working that dead-end job. The one that made me worth more than half the people in this room combined. The silence was absolute. Mom's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Aunt Marie's face had gone an interesting shade of purple. Now, I said, picking up my bag, I believe dinner is served. Shall we? The walk to the dining room was the quietest the Wilson family reunion had ever been, and I was just getting started. The tension in the dining room could have been cut with the solid gold butter knives Aunt Marie had insisted on displaying. Crystal glasses clinked with nervous energy as the family settled into their usual seats, except now, mysteriously, my corner exile table had disappeared. Instead, Uncle George himself pulled out a chair for me at the main table, right next to Dad. Sarah, he cleared his throat, his earlier arrogance replaced with something approaching desperation. Perhaps we could discuss some potential synergies between Henderson Global and my firm. I took a slow sip of water, enjoying the moment. I don't think that would be appropriate, Uncle George. Given the pending SEC investigation into your trading practices. His face went white. How did you? I'm on the board now, I said simply. We get all the reports. Across the table, Jessica was furiously typing on her phone, probably Googling every detail she could find about Quantum Tech and my role there. Mom kept glancing between me and Dad, waiting for someone to take control of the situation. But Dad just sat there, staring at his plate, like it might offer some explanation for how his foolish daughter had outmaneuvered them all. The first course arrived. Imported caviar, naturally. Aunt Marie always did love her displays of wealth. So, Sarah, my cousin Patricia ventured, clearly trying to salvage some family dignity. Tell us more about your investments. Surely you had help managing such large sums. I smiled. Actually, I developed my own algorithm for identifying undervalued tech companies. It's been quite successful. Perhaps you've heard of Mindspace or Nexus Analytics? More uncomfortable shifting in seats. Both companies had been billion-dollar acquisitions in the past year. I was an early investor in both, I continued, along with 17 other startups that went public or were acquired. My personal portfolio has averaged a 312% annual return over the past 5 years. Uncle George choked on his wine. But enough about me, I said, turning to Jessica. How's the new position at Wilson Investment going? Still managing Dad's legacy accounts? Jessica's face flushed. Everyone knew she'd been given a cushy job at the family firm, despite having no real qualifications beyond the Wilson name. We're restructuring, she muttered. Yes, I heard about the client exodus, I said sympathetically. Difficult when people start asking questions about returns and fees, isn't it? Mom finally found her voice. Sarah, darling, perhaps this isn't the time. Actually, Mom, this is exactly the time. I pulled out my phone and pulled up an email. I received an interesting message from Mr. Harrison at First National Bank this morning. It seems they're considering pulling their entire portfolio from Wilson Investment Group. Something about outdated strategies and excessive fees. Dad's head snapped up. First National was their biggest client. Unless, I continued, they see some significant changes in management and approach. They specifically mentioned wanting someone with tech sector experience and a proven track record of innovation. The implication hung in the air like expensive perfume. You wouldn't, Jessica whispered. Wouldn't what? Except if they offered me a position to oversee the restructuring. I raised an eyebrow. You're right. I wouldn't. I already turned them down. Relief flooded Jessica's face, quickly replaced by confusion as I continued. I suggested they move their assets to Henderson Global instead. Under my leadership, we're launching a new tech-focused investment division next month. The second course arrived, Wagyu beef, that probably cost more than my first car. No one touched it. But that's not why I came today, I said, looking around the table. I came because it's time for some truth. 8 years ago, when I left the family business, it wasn't just about following my dreams or proving myself. It was because I saw what was coming. I pulled up another document on my phone and passed it to Dad. His hands shook as he read it. That's an internal audit from 2015, I explained to the table, showing exactly how outdated our investment strategies were, how much we were overcharging clients, how close we were to losing everything. I tried to tell you then. You all laughed. We've maintained our position, Uncle George started. Through relationships and reputation. I cut him off. But that's ending. The next generation of wealth doesn't care about country club memberships or family names. They want results, innovation, actual value. The silence was deafening. So here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice calm but firm. Tomorrow, Henderson Global will announce its new tech investment division. We'll be offering all Wilson Investment Group clients a chance to transfer their assets, with significantly lower fees and access to the kind of opportunities you've been missing for the past decade. You destroy your own family's business? Aunt Marie gasped. I met her gaze steadily. No, Aunt Marie. I'm offering to save it. But this time, on my terms. The dessert cart rolled in, imported French pastries that would go untouched. The Wilson family reunion had just become a business negotiation. And for the first time in history, they weren't the ones holding the cards. My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant. Henderson Global Board meeting confirmed for tomorrow, 9 a.m. I stood, smoothing my simple black dress. I should go. Early meeting tomorrow. But before I leave, I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of envelopes, placing them around the table. "What are these?" Mom asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Investment opportunities," I replied. "Private placement in 3 pre-IPO companies I fed. The same kind of opportunity you all passed on 8 years ago. Consider it a family discount. Though this time, the minimum investment is $5 million. I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Jessica? The corner office at Henderson Global is available if you're interested. But fair warning, we promote based on merit, not last names." The walk to my cannery had never felt so satisfying. Behind me, through the dining room windows, I could see them all frantically opening the envelopes, desperation replacing disdain. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, it's making them beg to be part of it. 6 months later, I stood in my new office on the 47th floor of Henderson Global's headquarters, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold. The view was different from the stuffy old Wilson Investment Group offices. Modern, expansive, forward-looking, just like our approach to business. My assistant, Marcus, knocked on the door. "The quarterly numbers are in." I turned from the window, taking the tablet he offered. The figures made me smile. Assets under management up 42%. Client acquisition rate tripled. Average portfolio returns exceeding market benchmarks by 28%. "And Wilson Investment Group?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Down 67% since our announcement. They've lost most of their major clients." He paused. "Your father called again." Of course he had. They all had, really. Amazing how quickly disdain turns to desperation when money's involved. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Can we talk? Please?" After the reunion, she'd been the first to jump ship, showing up at my office the very next morning. Not out of loyalty or recognition of her past mistakes, but pure survival instinct. Classic Jessica. I'd given her an entry-level position in our analysis department. No corner office, no special treatment. 6 months later, she was actually showing promise. When forced to work for something, she wasn't entirely useless. "Ms. Wilson?" Marcus interrupted my thoughts. "The Forbes interview is here." Emma Parker from Forbes was exactly what I expected. Sharp, observant, and straight to the point. She set up her recorder as we sat in the conference room overlooking the city. "Quite a year you've had," she began. "From family outcast to one of the most talked about names in finance. Want to tell me how that happened?" I smiled. "Would you believe it started with a family reunion?" The interview lasted 2 hours. We covered everything: the early days at Quantum Tech, the algorithm I developed, the careful planning that led to the Henderson Global acquisition. But what she really wanted to know about was the family. "Your father's firm is struggling," she noted. "Sources say they're considering selling." "Are they?" I kept my voice neutral. "Interesting. Word is, you're the potential buyer." I leaned back in my chair. Everything's for sale at the right price. After she left, I had another visitor. Uncle George. He'd aged a decade in 6 months. His previous arrogance replaced by something approaching humility. "Sarah," he began, fidgeting with his now discount watch. "The board, we've been discussing options. I'm sure you have." I kept my focus on my computer screen. "We could merge," he suggested. "Wilson Investment Group still has value. The name, the relationships, had value." I corrected him. Past tense. He deflated visibly. "What do you want, Sarah?" Name your price. I finally looked at him. You still don't get it, do you? This was never about price. It was about respect. About recognizing value isn't just about last names and country club memberships. We were wrong, he admitted. Is that what you want to hear? What I want, I said carefully, is for you to leave. When I'm ready to make an offer for what's left of Wilson Investment Group, it'll be through proper channels, just like everyone else. That evening, I had dinner with an unexpected ally, Aunt Marie. She'd called out of the blue, asking to meet at a quiet restaurant downtown. She looked smaller somehow, less intimidating without her usual armor of jewelry and condescension. I've been thinking about what you said, she began, at the reunion, about seeing what was coming. I waited, sipping my wine. You tried to warn us, didn't you? All those presentations about digital transformation, algorithmic trading, changing client expectations. We thought you were just trying to show off. And now, she smiled sadly, and now my investment portfolio is down 60%. My social circle is jumping ship to your firm, and I'm having dinner with the niece I used to mock. Life has a sense of humor, doesn't it? I pulled an envelope from my bag and slid it across the table. Speaking of humor, she opened it, her eyes widening. This is the same investment opportunity I offered at the reunion. The minimum is still $5 million, but the projected returns have actually improved. Why? She whispered. Why offer this to me now? Because you're the first one to admit you were wrong without trying to negotiate something in return. 2 weeks later, I stood in the lobby of Wilson Investment Group for the first time in 8 years. The place looked tired, dated, like a relic from another era, which in many ways it was. Dad waited in the main conference room along with the board of directors. The acquisition agreement sat on the table between us. You didn't have to do it this way, he said quietly as I sat down. We could have kept it in the family. That's exactly why I had to do it this way, I replied, pulling out my pen. The old way of doing things is over, Dad. The future belongs to those who can adapt. I signed the papers efficiently, no ceremony or emotion. 8 years of planning, of being underestimated and dismissed, had led to this moment. Wilson Investment Group would be absorbed into Henderson Global's tech division, its assets redistributed, its outdated approaches modernized. What happens now? Dad asked as I stood to leave. I paused at the door. Now we build something better. Something based on merit, not inheritance. You're welcome to be part of it, as an employee, not an owner. The next morning, I called an all-hands meeting. The old Wilson investment staff mixed uneasily with their Henderson Global counterparts. Jessica sat in the middle, a perfect symbol of the bridge between old and new. As of today, I announced, we're no longer Wilson Investment Group or Henderson Global. We're Quantum Financial Partners. I clicked to the next slide, revealing our new logo, a name that represents innovation, forward-thinking, and most importantly, results. The room erupted in applause, genuine this time, not the polite golf claps of family reunions past. Later that evening, as I packed up my office for the move to our new headquarters, I found an old photo tucked in my desk drawer. The last Wilson family reunion before I left. Everyone posed perfectly, fake smiles and real jewelry, all show and no substance. My phone buzzed with a text from the Henderson Global Board. Q1 projections exceeded. Stock up 12% on acquisition news. I smiled, tucking the photo back in the drawer. The next family reunion would be very different. if I decided to attend at all. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong, it's building something so much better that they can't help but admit it.